Howard also said that, quote, factionalism has poisoned, unquote, the party. Now, I mean, Howard also once famously described the party as a broad church, but can a broad church adhere to the same values? I mean, is that what's driving the party apart at the moment?
Look, I think it can. I think it has before. And of course, you don't have to think back too much prior to that to remember the famous battles of Peacock and Howard in the mid-'80s and the late '80s, of course. So I have to say, I think there's a little bit of selective memory going on there, from the elder statesman, which of course is, a great prime minister's prerogative to do so. But I don't know. I don't know that factionalism really has any more or less of a place than it does now in the Liberal Party, or that it has in other parties. It is a simple byproduct of the Liberal Party being able to speak its mind. There are people that hold much more left-wing views than I would, perhaps you would, Fred, and there are people that probably even hold more conservative views than both of us as well. But, that's the way it is. I think they do manage. But the one thing that can't happen is the party can't lean to the left too far, because then the sort of the spectre of factionalism becomes, more obvious, I think. And I always find that, that the left will say that when the ship is righting itself. So I'm hopeful that we'll see, more return to the party's values, which is the party is a Menzies, free speech, freedom of choice. These are things that have all been really missing and important in the last little period. So, I'm not convinced factionalism has increased or otherwise over the last 30 years. I think it's all pretty much the same.
Well, that's reassuring to hear, but factionalism is pretty rife in the Republican Party in the United States. Mr. Howard made a kind of a throwaway line, really, but caused a lot of sensation when he said Donald Trump is unfit to return to the presidency. Now, like you, Alex, you're a bit of a Trump man. Do you agree with Mr. Howard's assessment here?
No, look, I'm going to have to entirely disagree with Mr. Howard on that basis. Look, I think there is an element of, of the time shifting in over the course of time here. You have to look back at President Trump's track record, and people don't like the personality, they don't like the carry on, they don't like the behaviour, and that's all fine. That's a personal decision. I actually think it's pretty irrelevant, to be absolutely honest. I don't see this as being some, figurehead that needs to, sit and use their, knife and fork properly and all that sort of stuff. I see it as a track record scenario, and particularly when you look at the shambolic nature of the country at the moment under President Biden. You only have to look back 2 years ago to when they were energy independent, when they were on the brink of Middle East peace, they were pulling out of wars all over the world. You had all these things that had actually happened and been done because you had someone that was pushing against the trend. So I just don't agree with that, and I really don't see how that's the case. I think the other thing that needs to be said here is that conservative politics now, I think, has changed a lot from even the time when Mr. Howard was in Parliament. I don't see centre-right type conservative types as being the establishment anymore. I think quite the opposite. The dial has shifted now that, we are almost anti-establishment types and therefore needing to show some teeth and a bit of fight. And I've talked about that many times at length. One of my great frustrations is the amount of time spent by conservatives in this country, both politicians and otherwise, talking about things under their breath so that people don't hear it, but they won't say it out loud for fear of being yelled at. That applies to politicians as much as it does apply to people in their private life as well. Well, guess what? I think we've got to start getting louder. And sometimes, it takes a President Donald Trump to do that. So be it. If it wins the day, I'm all for the values, not the show.